Going through an awakening can be absolutely heartbreaking at times. The grief we've experienced through the different realizations that we see of reality, that when we're getting the truth unveiled to us, can really break our heart. We can really experience such a sense of loss. And so this talk is about all the different ways that grief shows up when we're going through an awakening and how to process it. As different realizations arise and we start to see things differently. And so I often talk about different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. So if you think of the truth, the ultimate truth as like 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and each realization that we have is one piece of the puzzle. And so it contains the truth within it. It is true, it is reality, but it's just one piece. But each time we add another piece to the puzzle, we might feel a certain way about that realization. So perhaps we have the realization that there's no people here, these family members that I thought I was really close with, that I thought I had all this connection with, they're actually just me. They're me. I've only ever been in a relationship with myself. So this is the piece of the jigsaw puzzle of truth that gets shown to us in our own direct experience, this realization that the other people here are actually me. They've always been that. And this is a part of what oneness is about. So this is something we get taught and shown directly in life, in our own experience. And so how are we going to deal with that piece of the puzzle? One person might get really scared about that. One person might not be able to face it and will just reject that vision or that seeing that they got, that realization that they got, and just not go any further with awakening. And another person might grieve the loss of that. And so that's just, it's going to be up to each person how you process each piece of the puzzle. But to grieve it is totally natural. And it's because it feels like we had it and we're losing it. That's not what is actually happening. That's not the truth of what's happening, but that's how it feels to us. Or we could say it feels to the separate self that feels like it's there. And so that's okay to process that. That's okay to cry and feel like I'm losing everything. I'm losing these people that I thought I loved, that I thought loved me. I'm losing that sense of connection or even humanity. We're going to perceive it all different ways, but just allow yourself to just to feel it all the way through, to cry and to let it go, and don't block yourself. So that could be one reason why we are feeling upset and feeling a sense of loss during awakening. Each time that we see that we don't exist as a person, because we exist as what you could call awareness or God, but as a person, we see that the separate self is illusory. We see this many times, this realization shown to us many different times. Each time it's a piece of the jigsaw puzzle as we get shown that. And this is one of the ones that's really going to activate this sense of grief. And so we feel like we're losing ourselves. It can feel like a death, or we can feel like we're losing all of the things that we wanted to do in life, and we're never going to be who we thought we were going to be. So we can grieve over that. We can grieve over not getting what we want. That's natural as well. And so whichever way it's showing up for you, is just allow that to be. That's okay to feel that. So even though we can say it might be egoic and that is coming from the separate self or whatever, that's totally fine. We just allow that grief. We cry it out. We allow that to be there. It's totally fine that it's there, and then it'll shift, and then you won't care about that anymore. It literally won't be there anymore. So we're wanting to process the grief to work our way through it so we break free of it. That's the point of it. And so another reason why the grief might be there is that we feel like we're losing our world. So we might have been very attached to what we perceived our animals, or animals in general, the birds, the wild birds, nature, all of these things, we start to get clarity on what it is that we're perceiving. And it's not to say that what we perceive, what reality is bad by any means. It's certainly not. It's just that it can be quite a shock because we had some idea of what we thought it was, and then, which is a part of the illusion of duality, and we've perceived things through that lens and believe things to be a certain way, and then this is getting shaken up and it's getting shown to us. That's actually the way you're perceiving it is not actually correct. And then we're getting shown what is true, which is that all kinds of different pieces of the puzzle, everything's made of emptiness. There's no substance to anything. Wow. And it's all actually me. Right. Okay. All these different pieces to the puzzle. And some of them we might find, wow, that's amazing. That's so interesting. And another one we might go, this one's really sad though. I find this one really sad. This feels like a real loss to me. And it's because we were attached to it. That's all. And that's natural. We're going to have attachments while we're in an egoic consciousness, while we're believing we're a separate person. We're going to have some level of attachment. And that's just a part of being in that state of consciousness and a part of what drops away through the awakening process. As those attachments drop away, of course, we can feel grief then. So, we can, I remember when I saw that, the connection that I had with dogs was sort of illusory in a sense, because there was no dogs there and me here that had this strong bond. That wasn't ever true. It was that, and perhaps you could say in a relative sense, in some way it is, but in an absolute sense, it was saying I was only ever connecting with myself and these things that I was labeling dogs, but it was actually all just me, and it was really made of this, mysterious void. And so it felt like it took something away from my experience of connecting with animals, which I held very dear and was attached to without realizing it. We usually don't know that attachments are there until they drop away. And so I found that very sad. So that might sound very silly to someone else, but for me, it was heartbreaking and I had to work through the layers of grief that were there. And then in the end, it seems, once you've processed, it seems kind of funny or silly that you ever felt hurt over that, but it's just because an attachment was letting go. So anywhere where we're feeling any kind of emotional attachment to something, we're getting a sense of identity out of it. We're getting a sense of existence out of it, really. We're feeling like I'm a person here that is an animal lover in that example, or I'm a person here that's a mother that has these beautiful children here. And so that sense of emotional a connection and attachment that we have that makes us feel like we exist as a separate person. And so not making that wrong, was just saying that's where we start, is that we have these attachments. When they start to break through the awakening process, it's a natural part of awakening for them to start to be taken away from us, the attachment themselves, not necessarily the object of our attachment. Then we're going to experience grief, likely going to experience grief when one of those attachments drops away. So there's also just grief that can happen because we're feeling like our life is changing so much and we could actually be losing things. That's quite a natural part of awakening as well. How much we lose will remain to be seen until you've completed the awakening process, but it's quite common to lose friendships, relationships, even attachment to the objects that you have, the things that perhaps a car that you have, a house that you have, where you're living. All kinds of things can change depending on where you're identified, and life will rearrange life to make it in alignment with truth. And if that means helping you to let go of some attachments along the way, then of course the consequence of that is that we're likely to experience some grief because of that. So it can very much be because of the personal story and the traumas that we're experiencing. It could be because of the changes that are going on in our life and all the loss that we're experiencing. There can be a lot of grief around that, of course. That can be one of the most painful parts of awakening, in my opinion, is just that the shifts that happen in your life and the actual loss that you're genuinely experiencing. Existential grief aside, you're experiencing the grief of losing things in your life. And so it's like, just process it like you would grieve any loss of a person or anything like that. Just allow yourself to feel it all the way through. Then on top of that, you've got all the existential grief layers to do with noticing, oh, I don't exist, the world doesn't exist in the way that I thought it did, all these things that I'm attached to, my loved ones, my partner, my children, all of these things. We're seeing the truth in what was always true, and the truth is not bad in any way. It just can be a little confronting or shocking initially, and then we can find it sad, which is where the grief part comes in. So it's just a matter of being willing to look at, part of awakening is just, are we willing to see all of truth? Or are there some pieces to the jigsaw puzzle that we're willing to see, and other pieces that I'm really not willing to see? That I'm not willing to see that I'm actually alone. I'm not willing to see. That's a piece of the jigsaw puzzle that lots of people don't want to see, that one. When they get to that piece of the puzzle, they just say, no, thank you. And they put down awakening, or they unconsciously do whatever they can to avoid any type of being alone or being still, to avoid facing that existential aloneness, which is understandable, but it will stall out awakening. I've spoken about this before. So if there is any piece of the puzzle that we don't want to experience because it's too either scary or we're too sad about the loss of that thing, I don't want to see that, this relationship that I have with my partner, this connection that I feel here, this deep connection and this love, was really only with myself. That's too confronting for me to see. And so if we avoid that, any piece of that, that's where we'll stall out with awakening, because we have to be willing to see every single piece of truth. And once we process them, whether we find it sad or scary or whatever happens, once we process it fully, we get through the other end, and then we see, oh, it's not a big deal at all. It's just was sad for a period of time. We allow it to be sad. We don't push it away. It's okay that it's sad. We experience it however we experience it, and that's totally okay. It's totally acceptable for it to be felt in whatever way, that piece of the jigsaw puzzle. But then we work our way through it. We don't fight it. We don't fight what's true. We don't fight what we're being shown. We embrace it. Like, that's just reality. I can feel bad about it. That's okay. But, at the end of the day, I want to put that down, and it's just an acceptance that comes. We can't solve the truth of reality. It's not a problem to be solved. We're just getting them revealed one piece at a time. Here's the next piece when you're ready. And then it's like, do you feel sad about that? That's okay. You can feel sad. You can feel scared. You can feel excited. That's okay. However you feel is okay. Just feel it. But we don't want to avoid any of those pieces of the puzzle because we're scared about feeling any of these things.